Hi everyone, this is Dr. Hall, and I'm going to do the deep structures of the posterior leg with you. And then we're going to do the more superficial structures in a second video. So the first muscle, the deepest structure actually we're going to find in the posterior leg is the tibialis posterior. So remember, in the anterior compartment of the leg, we had a Tom, Dick, and Harry, a tibialis, a digitorum, and a hallucis. Same thing in the posterior leg, in the most deep compartment of that posterior leg. So our tibialis posterior is going to attach broadly to the posterior tibia, so that makes sense. And then it's going to come along and the tendon is going to hook behind the medial malleolus. So remember, the muscles of the lateral compartment, their tendons hooked behind and underneath the lateral malleolus. All of these deep posterior compartment leg muscles are going to scoop underneath the medial malleolus, and it's going to insert on the tarsal bones here on the base of the foot. So the tibialis posterior is a plantar flexor of the foot. So the next thing that we're going to introduce is actually our arteries. So you'll remember we had the femoral artery, which traveled through the adductor hiatus to become the popliteal artery. That's going to send off a branch anteriorly between the fibula and tibia, which will be the anterior tibial artery, and then continue down into the posterior tibial artery here. Not long after we form the anterior and posterior tibial arteries, we're going to have another branch split off, and that is the fibular artery, which is going to travel along the fibula. So that makes sense, which is nice. So there's our Tom, our tibialis posterior, and it's in the middle this time, which is interesting. Our next muscle is, actually, let's add some nerves. So remember, we have the sciatic nerve coming through the posterior thigh, and that splits into the common fibular nerve, which circles around laterally, and then the tibial nerve is going to course posteriorly into the posterior leg and run between the posterior tibial artery and the fibular artery. So the next muscle that we're going to add now is going to be the hallucis muscle. So we're on the posterior surface, and so these muscles are actually going to be flexing the toes. So this is going to be the flexor hallucis longus. So this muscle is actually quite large, and because it's so large, we actually can't see much of the tibialis posterior muscle at all until we dissect pretty far down, which is very different from the anterior compartment of the leg. The flexor hallucis, meaning big toe muscle, is then going to, its tendon is going to travel again underneath that medial malleolus, and it's going to come all the way out and insert on the posterior or plantar surface, the plantar surface of your great toe. Flexor hallucis longus. The final muscle in the deep posterior compartment is going to be our Dick, right? Tom, Dick, and Harry. Tom, Dick. Tom, Dick is the new one, and then Harry. So this is going to be the flexor digitorum longus. This one is going to attach to the tibia. Again, we can't really see the tibialis posterior very clearly. And then it has to do something strange, because look at which side of the leg it's on. It's on the medial side of the leg where the big toe is, but this is the digitorum, and it has to supply the little toes, right? The digits. So it's going to actually go underneath that malleolus, and then it's going to cross over the tendon of the flexor digitorum longus. And then it's going to divide into 4 tendons to flex your 4 small digits. So let's review what we have. We have the flexor hallucis longus that flexes the big toe, is the largest and most obvious muscle of these deep posterior leg muscles. The flexor digitorum longus is relatively weak by comparison. We have the tibial nerve and the posterior tibial artery running along the surface of this muscle in the middle, which is the tibialis posterior muscle. And coming out here laterally, we have the fibular artery. So posterior tibial artery, fibular artery, and tibial nerve. So those are the deepest structures in the posterior leg. In the next video, we'll do the structures that are superficial to those, as well as the structures found in the popliteal fossa.